Who are we? What is between me and you? What is between me, myself, and the world? Questions we all struggle with. We talk with Barry Long, an Australian teacher, spiritual man, who visits Holland regularly. We're now in Eindhoven. Barry, welcome.
Well, thank you, Luke.
Reading a little bit about you and seeing the tapes, this concept of me, myself, the world, seems to be on the core of your teaching.
Yes, pretty well, yes, that's so.
Please give me an idea what your view is on these.
Well, what the truth is, not my view. We must have the truth. And the truth is that the most intimate part of you, which we all overlook because we're fixated on the world, is me. That beautiful place in you, which is still the boy that you were, the innocence, the simplicity, the wondrous place where you know that you love, even though you mightn't be able to love. That's called me. And you say, you use the word me most intimately. You never call anyone else me, do you? You call them you, but you never call them me.
So me is the inner
being, which is there now in every moment. And then there's yourself, which is on top of me, and which is the troublemaker in everybody's life. Yourself is the only problem on earth. If you didn't have yourself, you'd be a body and me, a beautiful, wonderful thing like all the rest of the creatures on earth. But we have ourselves, and ourselves are violent, pitiable, cruel, cunning, unhappy, resentful, angry. That's all myself.
Now, what you call myself is what some people would call the ego.
Yes, they would, but they don't know what the ego is. So they call it their self.
Ego. It's a similar concept where you say all your frustrations are, but also your defense system, also your way of coping with the world is in the ego. And it seems to resemble that what you call myself.
Yeah, but it's not the truth. The ego is the most precious and beautiful thing because the ego is confined to the body, which means the ego protects the body, the survival of the body, and that's a very beautiful thing.
Oh, actually, so you see this system that we grow up with, that we have learned to cope with the world. You see, actually, that's our treasure. It's not.
No, that's the ego. What is not coping with the world is our self. So we all have to have a degree of self, and that's provided for us by our experience, because all our experience that we have is, most of it is in being hurt. Our disappointments, our emotions when we're a child, our sexual experiences when we're so disappointed that it didn't turn out as me thought it would. And that turns into self, and that makes us hard. And then we've got to defend ourselves against the world, when we don't have to defend ourselves against the world. We only think we do.
So the me inside, you say we don't have to defend?
No. No, it's power. It's not force. Everything, myself is force, and me is power. And power is still and silent and potent and beautiful. And that's me, inside that body listening to these words. And then there's yourself sitting on it. Wouldn't you know how often you feel burdened? You know how often you want to get away from it all? All you want to do is get away from yourself.
Yes, but then sometimes I've learned that accepting myself and kind of calming it down and saying, okay, something happened in the world, any sounds, people shouting at you, remembering my father, whatever, I can calm down to myself and then say, hey, here we are again.
Yeah, but the fact that you've got to calm it down shows that it's not a good thing, is it? I mean, if you get angry...
No, it's not a good thing.
Well, then what are you got to do about it? It's no good calming it down, because it'll get angry again and frustrated and unhappy again. You've got to do something about it.
So you have a solution for that?
Of course I do have a solution, okay. Otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you.
Okay, Barry, tell me, what can I do to... You actually say to get rid of the myself.
Well, to align yourself with me. You see, we've got to get the words right. Once yourself is aligned with me, the most beautiful part of you, which is the God in you, which is the being in you, myself surrenders like a true disciple, and then we don't have any more problems with myself. It's only when myself...
I get confused. When you now talk about me, you're not talking about your me, you're talking about me.
There's only one me. There's no me out here. This is a you. Now, come on, get your thinking straight.
Okay.
This is a you to you.
Yes.
Me is the most intimate place in anyone listening to this tape, including you. That's me, right? So I forgot the question that you asked.
The question is, how do I get to the me, or in other words, how do I align the myself?
Well, first of all, you've got to be intelligent. Now, most of the world is clever but not intelligent. To be intelligent is to be able to be with me inside your body, right? Listening to these words.
Yes.
To be able to be, being, not being something, not being unhappy, not being happy, not being a man, not being a woman, but being, which has no gender, except that it always comes through a man or a woman. And that's in you now. And once you do that, you then start to get your life right, because nobody's life's right that I've ever met yet before they come to my teaching. You know how you tell whether your life's right? Well, you tell your life's not right by where you get emotional. Does that make sense? If I get emotional about my mother or my father, obviously my life's not right there.
Yeah, but for instance, I'm in a car. I get emotional because a guy is speeding or stopping, whatever. I might get emotional at that moment. Does that mean I'm not right?
Yes. Yes, it does. Because you're not supposed to be emotional, because that's yourself. Emotion is yourself. And emotion is anger, resentment, jealousy, hatred. There's no good emotion. There's just none. You tell me a good emotion.
Well, suppose I'm in a car and some accident happens in front of me, I get kind of, fired up and I hit the brake.
No, you don't get fired up. Your body reacts before your silly self, where our selves are all silly. Your body reacts for survival. The ego reacts for survival, not yourself. Your ego reacts for the survival of the body. And you do that, and then shock comes into you, because shock always comes into us because we've got physical bodies. And then we try to calm down the body because it gets shocked by anything that interrupts the constant flow of normality.
I see. So, not being emotional. Oh, well, that's a heavy message.
Being absence of emotion.
Yeah.
See, not being emotional means sounds as though you're trying to suppress it.
Well,
but
don't you feel that some people kind of cherish their emotions?
Well, they do. They come to my meetings and say, I love my emotions. And I say, well, we better ask your partner what he thinks about it or she thinks about it. They don't love your emotions.
Take an opera singer who would say, I love my emotions because they help me to express.
Oh, that's rubbish. That's rubbish. An opera singer loves what they're doing, and when you love what you're doing, you don't have to be emotional, do you? An emotional person is emotional because they're not loved.
Well, then I understand that for you, say, a loving attitude is not emotional, that you make a distinction.
No, of course it's not. Love is a state. Emotion is a position. Whenever you're emotional, you take a position. Whereas when you're in love, you're in a place or a state, and it doesn't matter where you are, you're just open. And whereas as being emotion is contraction, isn't it? Love is just open. To get emotional about something, you take a position and you're contracted.
You separate.
Yeah, you separate. You separate from me, in other words, in your own being.
Yeah, I see. So that actually sounds like Reich, who said,
oh, dear,
going out.
I don't sound like anyone. I'm here. I'm here. Riker, Jesus, I just got no connection with anything. I am a self-made, discovered truth. I don't have any master. I don't follow any Eastern teaching. I am purely, utterly, completely what I am, and the truth that comes out of me comes from my own self-discovery and the revelation by the grace of God.
Still, you're Australian. You use English. You use words that are yours.
Yeah, I'm a teacher of the West. I don't use Eastern terms like most masters and teachers do, because I'm of the West, like you are.
Yeah, but it's clear that words like ego and me and myself or I are you have to clarify them as you're doing.
Yeah, but I shouldn't have to clarify them, should I?
Yeah, but isn't it that these words, like the words love, got confused?
Yes, it's got confused because we don't know what love is and we don't practice love, so then we compromise and make a compromised concept of the word love. Now, if we loved, we wouldn't have to ask me, you wouldn't have to be talking to me about love. You'd say, I know everything you're saying, Barry. And if you know all about truth or God or death, you wouldn't have to talk to me about those subjects. But I know all about those subjects, you see, because I know myself. That's all.
Yeah, but still you have a notion. When you say making love, I might think about sex, and you might think about in a connection.
No, if you say about making love, there's only the making of love, right?
Yeah.
It's not the making of sex, it's the making of love. You don't go around saying making sex,
Yeah.
you make love. So then you've got to get it straight what it is to make love.
Tell me what making love is.
Well, making love is first of all getting rid of all excitement in you. Excitement's a substitute for passion. So if you're not a passionate, you've got to get yourself excited to substitute for it. So you've got to use right words.
Yes.
Excitement is not passion. Like power is not force.
So sex is not love.
Sex is not love. Never, ever will be.
But in most people, these things are kind of mixed up.
Well, in everybody they're mixed up until they come to my teaching. That's how it seems to be. So because I put things rightly and straightly, like two men talking together, instead of relying on some impractical notion or mantra or something else, which is of the East, which is a totally different culture.
So how does this understanding change people?
Well, you've got to practice it. You can't read a book and just think that you can get enlightened through a book. Let's use the word enlightened. It seems to be the popular word. You can't do that. You've got to practice. First of all, you've got to practice never being angry, never being frustrated, never being hurtful in the sense of being hurt inside yourself. You've got to practice giving up your own happiness, in other words.
Okay, teach me. There's some people talking in the back there that kind of, I get an emotion out of that. It's like, oh, someone should do something about it.
Well, there's only one person that can do something about it. You pick up the cameras and you take us somewhere else.
Yeah.
You're the person that's got to do something about it.
Yeah. But you see, these reactions come to me. It's, in a way I feel that's a professional attitude to think about sound and...
No, it is a practical way. If you're a professional producer, interviewer like you are, then you have to be aware of all those things that would spoil the interview.
Yes.
And in that case, you say, oh, well, that's happened. You know, once we had an interview where the people used to, there was dogs barking next door. So he reached into his case and he pulled out some meat. And he threw it over
That's a well-prepared guy.
A well-prepared guy, you see. And I said, God, do you carry that all the time? He says, yes, we always take that with us because there's always dogs next door. So that's the same thing, you see. But then,
well, there's always people, and it's... but what I mean is that, indeed, emotions come up all the time.
No, but you shouldn't get emotional about it. You shouldn't be proud of your emotions. You should act, indeed. You know that it's not right, and you take action to eliminate it if you can. If you can't, what do? You surrender. But you don't need to get emotional about it because you'll upset yourself, and yourself will come back at you and get hard. And when you get home, you'll need a drink, and you won't be able to make love to your wife because you're all disturbed inside. And that
so what you're really
right.
teaching is to take things easy.
No, I say you must get your life right, and you must give up all the negativity that's in you. In other words, you must give up your unhappiness. Now that's pretty simple, isn't it? Apparently it's not, because I tell everybody that. All I've got to do is give up my unhappiness. Then you've got to define unhappiness, haven't you?
Yeah.
Right. Now, if I am angry, then I'm unhappy, and probably I'll make my partner unhappy and the children unhappy, won't I, if I'm angry? So there's one thing I've got to give up. If I'm resentful towards another, I'm going to have a poison inside of me which will emanate around. I'll be contracted inside in a certain part inside of me. So that will make me unhappy because every time somebody mentions that person, I will get a contraction. Yeah. So I'll be unhappy. So I've got to give up resentment. And then if I get frustrated about not being what I think I should be or how things should be, then I'm going to get another tightness and contraction. That will make me unhappy, make my wife unhappy and my children unhappy because I'm unhappy. So all I've got to do is give up my unhappiness. But we in the West practice, and the West is now gone, or the East is now gone, West, there's no East left, we seem to accept this, that I have to be unhappy or I need to be unhappy. And I say there is nobody has the right to be unhappy.
But do you find a prevalent idea that people think they're unhappy?
No, they don't. They think they're all right. They don't know that they're unhappy. They don't know.
I have a feeling I'm happy and things happen.
No, but you do get moody, don't you?
Hardly.
Okay. Do you get angry?
Yes.
Well then.
Yeah.
There you go. Then you make yourself unhappy and you make the people around you unhappy, and life is not supposed to be that. You know, life's supposed to be easy and fine and beautiful, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to be unhappy.
But I also learned from myself that if I can catch the angerness in the butt, so to speak, so when it comes up, it usually has a message, because there is something that needs to be done.
Yeah, that's right. But that is true. There's something needs to be done. That is to get rid of your anger, to understand what anger is. Why would you be angry? I'll tell you why you're angry. If you want something that's impossible, you get angry and frustrated. Or if you want something, if somebody else crosses your path that you want and they want to do something and they've got more power than you, you get angry. Now that's ridiculous, to get angry. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yet it's the kind of reality that I experience, that most people...
No, that's what most people are, not intelligent, you see, because they're unhappy. They get unhappy. To get moody, to be all full of joy today, and then to be depressed tomorrow, I mean, would you say that was sanity? To accept that,
well,
to accept that. If I can be joyous today, then why can't I always be joyous, in the sense of absence of unhappiness? Why not? But
well, I don't know. Maybe our body gives up. I don't know. There's
look, if my body gives up, and my body's gradually giving up now, I don't have any problem with that. People have got worse than I have. All you've got to do, why would I get unhappy because my body was sick?
You mean what you're saying is that you really don't have a fear of death, or...
I have no fear of death because I know there is no death.
What is there then?
Pardon?
Well, we die. That's for sure.
Your body dies, and yourself dies, and all your memory dies, and all that you thought you were and thought you weren't, that all dies. But then there's a thing called consciousness, which is everlasting and ever here, and is here this very moment. But on top of the consciousness is your mind. And the mind covers over the consciousness. The consciousness is too fine. So your mind dies, your body dies, and yourself dies.
And the me?
Me is consciousness. Never dies. There it is inside you now. It's called being. Me and consciousness. Never dies. Is there forever and ever, ever.
So why are people so afraid of dying?
They're so afraid of dying because they haven't given up their unhappiness. They like to be afraid of death. They like to be afraid of things. People cherish their fears.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of tomorrow. They're afraid of the past because they think about the past and get all worked up inside. They're afraid of so many things instead of facing life as it is. What's wrong with life now?
I don't know. It might be that culture and that technology and stuff is over. I mean, you travel a lot. You come from Australia. Do you think that the Aboriginals, now maybe they don't have a very nice life, but that there are cultures in the world where they deal with this separation between the me and the myself better than we do?
Well, the worst thing that ever happened to the world was the coming of the West. Our Western culture is the worst thing that ever happened to life on Earth. And you can see it's getting worse every day. I don't have to say that. I don't have to prove that, do I?
No.
Our violence, our hatreds, our just confusion. And that's not going to change. Nobody can change that. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Should we defend ourselves against it or just accept it as inevitable?
Well, you can't say ourself. You can only say myself. Where I come from, you know, we like to say we. The scientists like to say, where are we going, where do we come from? And I won't have any of that at my teachings or anyone that's with me. I say, use the word I. Okay. Where do I come from? Where am I going?
Pollution? Should I find the degradation of culture, the things getting so hard?
No, you should do what you do. Everybody has to do what they do. You can't fight anything. If you do what you do and it's to fight something, that's fair enough. But you'll never change anything that much. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. If you're moved to fight pollution, then do it. Mm-hmm. As long as you love the fight, you feel something inside of you that is right, then you should do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to fight the pollution in the mind. which is my thinking.
Well, if you fight the pollution in the mind, you'll stop thinking, because the only pollution of the mind is thought. Thinking. That's a difficult one too, isn't it?
Yeah, well, people write books about thinking, and we think it separates us from the animal, whatever.
No, it separates it from me, not the animal. Forget the animal. Well, the me is the pure, innocent animal, like we see the rabbits and everything. Me represents that, which we all say, oh, how beautiful they are, how wonderful to watch, and we love to watch them in their natural habitat. That's the equivalent of me, because we relate to that. That's me and my innocence. So, but as soon as I start thinking about it, I lose me and I start to enter another world, another culture, which is the culture of unhappiness. Because thought will always lead to a thought about my own predicament, my own self-consideration, unhappiness. Thought will always lead there. Doesn't matter what you think about it.
Yeah, well,
you can't just give it up.
You don't have an easy message, Barry.
An easy message?
No.
We're talking about realizing God, life, truth, death, or love. We're talking about making that real in this body.
Yeah, but you ask for that, to give up my notion of myself, my defense
No, I
system.
tell you how to do it.
How to do it?
No, I don't ask you to give up anything. I ask you only to find out what's making you unhappy. And if you find that your anger or frustration makes you unhappy, then I will tell you to face that and ask yourself, well, why am I getting angry and unhappy? Why? We think we have a right, you see, we never ask the why. Why? And when I ask why, I start to get intelligent, and I see, well, I've got no right to be angry. I can take action if somebody does something to me. I take action necessary. If necessary, I can take them to the court. I can do anything. But I don't need to get violent, and I don't need to get angry and upset my whole system, which will, as we all know, possibly turn into causing ill health. So these emotions that and all those anger and all those things are emotions, they can affect my health, as we all know. And emotional people are nervous people, they're unreliable people. You know, you never know when to believe them. If they said, I love you today, they're likely to say, I hate you tomorrow.
Now, people could come to your course, to your teaching, and maybe you help them to think a little bit less, be a little bit less emotional.
Yes.
How do they feel afterwards?
Well, you better go and ask them. They feel great.
They feel great.
Because really... they say, well, when you come to my meetings, there's 400 people coming here for 5 days. And as there was in Sweden and Leicester last week, 500. I think we only had 250 in Sweden. But they come. They don't come to hear an idiot talking, and they don't come for a lecture for 5 days, you know. They come because it helps them to reach me inside them, their being, which never is always here. It's the immortal part of them. And that's beautiful, whereas your mind, what you think you are, what you believe in, is never going to last. You know, someone else is going to think something different, and you're going to have to go to war to defend your position and say that's a worthy war. And of course, there's no worthy wars.
Barry, I've watched your tape, and I see that the people that follow you, they adore you.
Well, that's not true.
Well, I hope they love you, and I think that's a great thing.
Well, I don't know that they do love me. Not all of them love me. Some love me because of the truth that I speak, not the man. They love the truth I speak.
Yeah. Well, I see a certain adoration, too. And for me personally, calling you a master of the West, or even the master of the West, and you know, looking up to you, makes me feel like, hey, we are all the same, aren't we?
No, we're not all the same, you see. People are filled with unhappiness, and I am not filled with unhappiness. That's why, by grace, I have the right to talk to the people about truth and life and death and God. Only because I am free of unhappiness. How could I be filled with unhappiness and talk to you about getting rid of unhappiness? That would be absurd, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but how do you then explain my feeling about it? Like, would you say, oh, that's just an old memory of your father who looked down to you and said, hey?
No, I would say that none of us, like all of us, of course, finally are God itself, the great truth, the great consciousness. We are all that finally, and we are all living below that potential. Everybody's living below that. And we don't like anyone calling himself a master, because we really should be the master. I should be the master.
Are, or not?
No, everybody should be I, the consciousness, which is free of unhappiness and therefore immediately in touch with God or life or truth or whatever the mystery is, immediately in touch with it.
Yeah, but you also, you not only are you in touch with it, but you teach it. Now I can understand that maybe out here in the fields there's a farmer who's a totally happy person, and he does his job and he doesn't speak or doesn't, but he looks at the birds and he's totally in with nature, and he's also a true master.
No, that's not true. That's not true. No, that's a nice way of sliding out from it. A true master is he who has realized the master consciousness, which I have, inside that body listening to these words, or this body speaking them. There is a place inside us. We are endless and depthless, unfathomable in intelligence, and the intelligence speeds up as you go down. And down there you can realize God and truth and all those words. You can actually realize those as a realization. That means making it real in your own experience and in your own body and living that. Now, not everybody does that, but everybody must live their life as it is. All the master does is talk to those who are attracted to what he's saying and who follow that. The man in the fields, he follows what he's got to do. Everybody's doing what they've got to do. That's why I say I don't try to get thousands and tens of thousands of people, followers. I don't have followers. I have practitioners, people who practice the teaching because they know it's true in their experience, not because I say it's true.
Okay.
I trust that everything I've said to you has to be true in your experience, or it's just rubbish.
Are there other teachings, other masters of the West that are, interesting, or that offer something similar that you do, that you know?
No doubt they are. No doubt there are. But the only teaching that I know that works is mine. Otherwise, I'd be teaching some other teaching, wouldn't I?
Yes, true. But my approach is that I see in everybody the master that they are, and if I don't see that, it's my limitation not to see the God in everybody.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think that what everybody should aim at, and that's what this teaching is, to get free of your unhappiness. Anyone who's not free of unhappiness is not free. He can call himself a master or a teacher, but he's not, because God is free of unhappiness, There's no unhappiness in God. There's no moods in God. There's no depression in God. There's no resentment in God. And to realize God is to get rid of all that and live that. You can't say, I've realized God, and then go and get depressed. I mean, that is an absolute contradiction. You have to live it, It's actually about living it. You can't.
So what's left is love. You have to live love.
Yeah, you have to live love, but you don't have to live love, because if you get rid of your unhappiness, all that remains is love.
Okay.
You don't have to do it.
One of the mistakes we maybe make in this is that we think love is always directed to something or the world, and we expect something back.
That is true. We have our love here is selfish.
Yes, and do you think that is the correct way to look at love?
Oh, no, of course not. Love is selfless, not selfish. And we love objects. That's where it starts, because we, as you just said, we love objects. The selfless love is to love being. Now, being is inside of you, and it has no attributes, but it's inside of everyone, so we all have the chance. But we want to put our love, which is our emotions, onto objects. And so we love an object, and then when that object dies, as it must die, or leaves me, I'm broken-hearted. That can't be love. So
we make it a conditional thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can't be love if it breaks your heart. It just can't be.
Now you say love is, well, you just give it. You put it out and...
No, you just walk around and do what you do. You don't try to do anything, because that would be selfish. You'd be trying to do something.
So in fact, your teaching is very easy. You don't have to do anything.
yeah, except not be absent of unhappiness. Moods, emotions, frustrations, absence of that, and then you're natural, like the rabbits that I see around here, and like the deer. You're natural. You're just a body. You're me, a body, and the beautiful earth.
Now, out of that concept of love, it seems that you have a certain morality about how people go about in the world.
No, I don't have a morality. No, I don't have a morality. I don't think you could say that. How they go about in the world.
Well, how men love women or not.
Oh, how men love women. Well, there's only one way to love a woman, and that's to love her. Not use her or misuse her as a sexual object.
Yeah, but through history we've seen many variations on the theme. We had harems, we have had, I don't know, all kinds of constructions. We have had marriage. Now it seems to be prevalent that you have a relationship with someone, maybe what we call living apart together or whatever, and maybe there's a concept what I call time sharing, where people share someone with others, or you know,
yes.
we go to the movies together, which is nice.
Does it free them of unhappiness? Are all those people that you said free of unhappiness through practicing time sharing and whatever it was, are they free of unhappiness? Well, the answer is no, they're not, and they're just making each other more and more unhappy, except the one who's satisfying his sexual urges, which is usually the man, and they're making each other unhappy. Now, love, if you've got a right relationship in terms of woman, say you're a man and woman, then the idea of that love is to get rid of her depressions, your moods, her moods. It should gradually remove all that rubbish from each of us. That's what love's about.
Yeah, but it's I get a notion that you think that a monogamous relationship is the best way to do that.
No, it's not that I think the best way. The best way that I know is for a man in his current condition is to take on a woman, and for her to take on the man, man to man, woman to woman, and take each other on in one-to-one relationship, because that's the only way he's going to face his negativity and she's going to face hers, because if she goes off to another one, she's going to get away with certain things. So if you really want to find love, man has got to have a one-to-one. But if he's really love, it doesn't matter how many women he is with, because each one he will help to free of her unhappiness. He won't leave her crying. He won't leave her emotional. He'll leave her saying, thank God I've had such a wonderful experience, I feel, and even though he's left, I know that he is love. Now we're nowhere near that in this society, are we? Because we're so selfish in our love. It's all sexual.
Well, it is, but we're trying to work with it.
We're not working. You can't work with it. It's too dangerous. You can't work with it. You've got to get to the root of it. The root of the unhappiness, the root of my sexual excitement, if I am a man. A man is sexually obsessed, as you've heard me say. He can't get it out of his head, and he feeds that obsession, and the only way to get rid of an obsession is to start to starve it, not to suppress it, but to starve it, because it ruins man's life, it ruins woman's life, it ruins everybody's life, does sex.
But this falls in the same thing. You say stop thinking about it.
I say that if you love a woman, there's no need to think about a woman, is there?
You just do what you need to do.
Yeah, well, you make love. Mm-hmm. If you make love, you don't have to think about it. It's when you don't make love that you've got to think about making love. Mm-hmm. Isn't that so?
Yeah.
If you eat food, you don't have to think about food. If you eat food and relish it for what it is, you don't have to think about it. But if you don't relish it for what it is and you use it for self-satisfaction, you're going to have to think about food and you'll get fat and unhappy.
Okay. Another concept is now. Even in this short conversation, you seem to have an hesitation to go and look in the past, into what other people have written, said, other teachers. Yet I like to read anything. Sufi poetry, which comes from 1,500 years ago, and it helps me to see the same things about love and about...
But I may interrupt you. Poetry is the worst thing that ever happened on earth.
Oh.
And now, because it makes you do just what you said. It makes you see about love, and you start to feel good, and you feel that you understand it. But do you go away and live it? And the answer is no, you don't. So the poet glosses over and lets everybody feel this wonderful feeling inside and relating to love, which we all can do, but then you've got to go and live it. Haven't you? If you're
I feel it as an inspiration. There's poetry.
Yeah, but what's inspiration for? To live it. But we all get the inspiration and then live in the inspiration, but we don't live it. How many people are going to give up being angry because they understand that anger is an unhappiness that makes everybody happy? How many people after listening to this are going to do that? Just that one little thing, I wonder. Because you've got to live it, you see. You could hear and be uplifted by what I'm saying, or you could be hostile about it. It doesn't matter. The thing is, have I said anything that you're going to live? Because action is purity, and living is the only way you can realize the truth, living it. But we in the West don't live it. We write books about it, we talk about it, we have discussions, and nobody lives it.
Oh, I don't agree.
Well, to give up being...
I meet people who at least trying to live it all the
no,
time, and I
you
see
can't
people...
try to live it, you see.
And I meet
you
people...
can't try to live it. If you're going to give up anger, you can't try to give up anger. You just know why. Have I got any right to be angry? And the answer is no. So you don't have to try. You have to have the intelligence to see, my God, no. I have no right to be angry. And once you do that, you'll find that moods, which are very difficult to get at, because they're a conglomeration of past unhappiness, as you get rid of these obvious things like anger and resentments, you find that the moods don't come up as often because they're all fed by the current anger or resentment. And then the depressions don't come up. You see?
Yeah, I see, but I see many people that are like that.
Well, that's great. That's great. But are they like it all the time?
Some of them are, yes.
Good, yes, indeed. Of course there's people like that in this world. Yeah. There must be. But most people are not. Most people are happy today and unhappy tomorrow. And that's a definition of unhappiness. Because if they were happy every day, or if they were unhappy every day, it'll be all right.
Okay. But then coming back to history, because in fact we are making history, this is now, and people will watch this tape later, and they will find inspiration out of it. Now I got inspiration from writers and poets and other videotapes and other interviews I've done. But actually most of my inspiration comes from good poetry, because it's like, you know, I take your Kabir or whatever, and he says, leave a space for the friend in your life. Now,
leave space for what?
For the friend in your life, and he means God. He means,
yes.
And every time I have a problem with a police agent, or, you know, there's something that happens in life, and then it's like this thought comes up in the back of my mind. They say, hey, come on, leave space for
God.
For God, because this is not your enemy. This guy might be in a bad mood or whatever, but,
yes,
you know, it's not
good.
Personal, whatever. So this is a little...
And that's an application, of that truth, right?
Yeah.
Now, I say that the friend in your life that he's referring to is me, inside your body.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay. Now leave space for me. So why do you have to be provoked by a policeman or something else on that occasion to use the application of that truth? Why not use it now? Why not use it all the time, being in the space that is me? Instead of those little things when something comes up, because that's a bit selfish, because you're not giving your space, giving yourself to me.
Yeah. True, you have to live in that. And yet, listen to this one. Who am I but my friends in me? Who are they but the friend in me?
I find that such...
Wait a moment. Then what about my enemy? Who is he, who is she in me?
I find that so confusing. I couldn't believe that anyone could write such rubbish.
Yeah?
Yeah, because why don't you say it straight? Why don't you be practical? Because my teaching's for 7-year-old. A 7-year-old should be able to listen to my teaching and say, yeah, I know that, I know that, I know that. But what you just said, no 7-year-old could possibly understand it. There is only I. There is only one I in the universe. For I, and I alone in that body and this body and everybody, call myself alone I. There is only one I. Now that's the truth. But in...
And it's in me.
And yes, it's in me. Yeah. But in a divided world where we are all divided bodies, and there are all forces and people want different things, we're all going to collide. as we want different things. We don't want me first, we want things first.
Yeah,
and that's the collision.
Yeah.
Objects, we want that first. And as soon as you do that, you introduce a world of collision and conflict, where what I want is going to conflict with what you want. And so the whole unhappy thing evolves. Whereas if I want me more than anything else, which is God, which is what the poet's saying, but in a very convoluted way, then I will have no enemies. I can have no enemies, because that would I'd have a resentment in me. I have no enemies. They might call themselves my enemies, but that's not my concern. I have no enemies in me. As a matter of fact, my teaching says, let go your prisoners. You've all got prisoners in your chest. You've got them in your stomach, little emotional dolls made out of in the figure of someone else that exists out there. You've made an emotional doll of them, and you lock it up in there in different places. The past lover, the past someone who did you harm, your mother or father or something else, and you've got all these little dolls in there. They're prisoners in a sort of a bamboo cage. And so the idea is, I let go all my prisoners forever and ever. Everyone that ever hurt me in my life, I let go of. I will have no hurt in me by anyone has done for me, ever.
Okay, and then a new day happens, now.
Yeah, of course.
Barry, did you notice that the sun came up while we were talking?
No, I didn't, but you did.
Yes, I did. I saw slowly. This was very long, and we talked about now and love and all nice things. And I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for your time.
Good, thank you, Luke.
U kunt deze tape van Barry Long en andere tapes ook bestellen via Egosoft 020 6203 239.